Hey everyone, it's Stella Grizont from WUPA doing another Work Happier Weekly. What's up? I'm excited to be back. Last week I had to pre-record because I was out on Wednesday night doing a family thing. So it's great to be back. And let me make this public. So today I wanted to talk about what does happiness really mean and why chasing happiness is actually not the answer to living the life worth living. So, as some of you may or may not know, I have a positive psychology background. I studied positive psychology at UPenn. And for those of you who aren't familiar, hey, Brian, for those of you who aren't familiar with positive psychology, often people will say positive psychology as opposed to negative psychology. And I say, no, but kind of. Hey, Andrea. Hey, Margaret. And so traditional psychology as we know it is a deficit model, and it studies what's wrong with people and how do we get them from -5 to 0. Positive psychology uses the same empirical approach, but it basically asks a different set of questions, and it asks what's right with people and how do we amplify it and how do we get them from 0 to +5. So that's what I want to talk to you about today is about positive psychology and how do we talk about living the life worth living. And one of the common misconceptions around positive psychology is that it's all about happiness. And happiness is a tricky word. So, in its most basic sense, in the way that we talk about it, it is the it is a set of feelings, a set of positive feelings, which could be joy, love, awe, serenity, pride, gratitude. Those are all positive emotions. And so when we feel happy, we're experiencing one or more of those things. So that's how we define, let's say, happiness in the most basic sense. Sometimes when people talk about happiness, yay, I'm so glad you got it too, Andrea. Sometimes when people talk about happiness, I think they mean something more. But for the sake of this conversation and semantics, that's how we're going to talk about happiness as just the experience of positive emotions, something pleasurable. And so the problem with just trying to feel happy all the time is that our emotions are constantly in motion. They are always changing. And they're changing because, in a way, our emotions are another sense that we have. They help inform us about our environment. They help us understand the world. Just like our sight helps us see, our emotions help us feel what's happening in the world. And so they're always in motion because they're responding to the different events that are happening. And sometimes we can feel both happiness and sadness at the same time, right? And so if we're constantly chasing just feeling good, the problem is that that's what we're going to be doing is we're going to be in a constant chase. And so to live a life worth living, it's important to feel positive emotions. Positive emotions do all sorts of good things for us. When we experience a lot of positive emotions, we're more likely to live longer. We know from longitudinal studies that people are twice as likely to be alive after the age of 60 if they experience more positive. If they're more optimistic and positive than their pessimistic counterparts. We also know that it boosts your immunity. Speaking of which, I have a cold. um, so I'm gonna try to enhance my positivity this week. No, but it helps you even if you have a cold, what they found is that you recover faster. They did this experiment where they took two groups of people and they induced them into different moods, which again, like you can for all these scientific experiments where they study happiness and they study positive psychology, they induce people into moods by just showing them pictures of puppies or really sad things. That's how fast we can change our emotions. So anyway, in this, they basically quarantined a hotel, and they took a group of people, made them kind of sad, and then a group of people, and had them they infused them with positive emotion, and then they injected basically the common cold. They gave everyone the common cold, and they would measure things like the weight of the tissues and the mucus consistency and the symptoms, and they found that those who were more positive ended up having better recovery and less symptoms. So there you go. So it is good to feel positive emotions. We also know that people who have more positivity are 40% more likely to get a raise. So in the following year, we know that you're actually, other people will objectively or other people will actually judge you as more attractive if you seem more positive. So so there's lots of great benefits. You're actually more creative, you're more productive. So it's great to feel positive feelings. But there's more. So when it comes to living the life worth living, in positive psychology, Martin Seligman, who's like one of the founders of the field, he talks about a theory of well-being, and the theory of well-being is how he tried to basically respond to, what does it mean to live the life worth living? And it comes down to experiencing a mashup of 5 different variables. So positive emotion is one of them. Your sense of engagement and being present in the moment, getting lost in the moment, is a second. Your relationships are a third, because people really matter. Your sense of meaning, belonging to something bigger than yourself, really matters. And then your sense of achievement. So all of those, Seligman, like an easy way to remember that is PERMA. That's like an acronym for positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. So chasing after just feeling good and being upset that maybe you're not always happy is well, one, when you're upset about being upset, it's like you're kind of it's kind of like you have a toothache and then you're like punching yourself in the face when you have a toothache. It's really unnecessary to feel bad about feeling bad. Let's just experience the negative emotion without feeling guilty that we're feeling it, right? Or mad that we're feeling it, because we're just like making it so much worse. So there's a lot of other things that you want to be working on, and not and your mood is always changing, and of course we want to enhance our mood because it's good for us, but we don't want to skip over the negative emotions. And so I know most of you are probably feeling what is it called, polar vortex right now. We're all like, it's going to be 1 degree tonight. And, our emotions are kind of like the weather. They're always changing. And so it will pass, right? And eventually there will be a new season, and, we'll be walking around in t-shirts. And so, yes, it's good to feel positive emotion, but when there's a polar vortex, when you're having a really bad day, that's okay too. And in fact, our negative emotions serve a purpose. They are there to help us understand that maybe something's off, maybe something's wrong. If we feel really upset about our performance, maybe that means, oh, I got to work harder tomorrow. Or if we feel bad that we didn't show up for a friend, maybe that means I should call that friend and see how she's doing. So our negative emotions are there to help us be better, to help us survive. They're critical for survival because they alert us to danger. Now, where negative emotions can get a little tricky is if we're thinking ourselves into a really negative place. So, for example, if we're imagining the worst possible thing that could happen. And we're paralyzed in fear because all we're thinking about is the worst possible thing that could happen, or how everyone hates us, or how we're a bad human being, or whatever it is. That is actually not, that is you. I want to use a really bad word, but I'm going to try to keep it clean on Facebook Live. That is you just um, exacerbating an issue. So when that happens, if you notice yourself going down a downward spiral, and negative emotions have a very heavy momentum to them. So and our mind almost wants to keep us in that negative space. It's called our negativity bias. Our brains are like, our attention is like Velcro to anything that is bad, wrong, or threatening. And so sometimes if we're experiencing a negative emotion, what will happen is we'll start to kind of go down this downward spiral. And then we suddenly find ourselves being really upset about maybe something that was just worth getting a little bit upset about. So if you find that happening, what you really want to do is practice what we know from, teachings in mindfulness or Buddhist practices or whatever meditation practice you have, but you basically want to bring yourself back to the present moment, because usually what's happening is your mind is racing into the future, imagining all sorts of possibilities, or it's replaying the past. And what that means is that you're actually not right here. And so one way to let that negative emotion pass, to let the storm kind of fade away into the distance, is just to be present. Like, where am I right now? How does this chair feel underneath me? What is the sensation of the air on my skin right now? Oh, it's a little cool. How do I feel in my body? Where do I feel this emotion? So really getting present. And what we know from research is that just by articulating a negative emotion that you're having out loud, or even writing it out on a piece of paper, that will help it pass through even faster. So we know from there was a really cool study done on people going through an MRI machine, and the group that was asked, hey, how are you feeling? And that had a chance to express that, oh, I'm a little anxious. They were less anxious when they were actually inside the tube, and their anxiety passed through much faster. And that's because there's not so much resistance. When we feel a negative emotion, we almost like brace ourselves and we don't want to feel it. We want to ignore it. We want to sweep it under the rug. We just don't want to feel it. And so that resistance to it just creates, that angst and that feeling bad about feeling bad. And I always say negative emotions are like children and if, sometimes they just want to be heard. And if you're ignoring them, they're going to get louder and louder and louder until you pay attention. And so they're good to acknowledge, to understand what's up for me. Why is this coming up for me? Get curious with it, and then get back into that present moment. So I hope that was helpful. Do you guys have any questions? Does any of that make sense? Hey, Sanya. Hey, Sonia. Hey, Lydia. I love seeing you guys here. Thank you for joining me. I was just talking about how chasing after happiness is just that, a chase. And so for the other pillars, if you guys want to know more, maybe what I'll do is next week I'll talk each week for the next 4 weeks. I can focus on a different pillar. So today we talked about positive emotions. So next week I can talk about engagement. How about that? That would be fun. All right. So other news, tomorrow I'm giving a webinar for Happify.com. If you guys don't know Happify, they're one of my favorite partners to work with. They provide all sorts of games and exercises to help you become more resilient and more positive and have less stress. And they have really fun activities if you visit Happify.com. So It's happening at 1 p.m. And if you join my email list, I will send out an email tomorrow morning giving you the link. Once again, I'm not prepared with the link. um, so if you visit whoopa.com and you sign up for my newsletter, I will get that for you. And you just go to the bottom of my homepage and you'll be able to sign up. So that webinar is going to be about how do you stick with your goals and not self-sabotage? So that's happening tomorrow. Another fun thing happening tomorrow is my podcast interview with Dave Asprey, who is the biohacking wizard around putting butter in your coffee and has all these great tips around being healthy and hacking, and like he basically wants to live till he's 180 and he has a plan. So you can listen to that podcast. That should be releasing tomorrow. Again, hopefully I'll have that link ready for you tomorrow when I send out my newsletter. And then also I'm on curiosity.com, their podcast. They're also one of my favorite partners to work with. They have really fun content. Like if you're just a curious person and you want to learn more about the world, it's really fun. It's really addictive, but it's a good kind of addictive because you're just learning fun stuff. So that is coming out as well. And then I'm just trying to think. There's more stuff, but I'll tell you more about that next week. So if you want to learn more stuff like this, subscribe to my newsletter. I'm doing these Work Happier Weeklies every week at 8:30 live on Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern time on Facebook, and then we go ahead and we post them to YouTube as well. And what else? If you are in need, if you feel like right now you're on the verge, you're ready for a shift, you're ready to take things up a notch, something needs to change because you're miserable at work, you're not waking up excited for the day, you're really not feeling motivated, or there's something bigger that's calling your name and you don't know what that is. If you need that kind of support, then I am happy to support you in doing that. And so you can always reach out to me. I am right now I have some space in my calendar. I do like these free strategy sessions where we can talk 30 minutes and explore if I'm the right coach for you, or just what are some solutions you can start using right away. So if you're interested in that, you can go to workhappinessmethod.com/apply, and then you tell me a little bit about your situation. So I'm prepared for our call, and then you go to my calendar and you book some time. So, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Work Happier Weekly, and I will talk to you next week.